All right, we're here. Yeah. Finally, you guys don't know what I just went through to get everything going live. Let's make sure the audio's on. All right, we're here. All right, yeah, the audio's on. Put the chat room up. Welcome everybody. It is 5:55 a.m. and we are finally live. Whoa, we are live at 5:55. Who's going to join us here? We are live at 5:55. Of course, my name is Ra Castaldo, and this is the Space Water Podcast where we dive into the sound of the light right here, exclusive on YouTube. And also, you can find me at the Mystical Spiral store, themysticalspiral.com, patreon.com/the Mystical Spiral. And by the way, this is sponsored by the Mystical Spiral store.com. Everybody, we finally got the super chat back, so you can support us in the super chat. Even 99 cents, a dollar helps out my groundbreaking research and information that I have been providing you for free on YouTube for many, many years, everybody. I even have a free website. Actually, I have to pay that website in about a week from now. And between that website and my store, I mean, it's well over $1,000 for those two websites. And it's all done right out of pocket by me. And it's very hard to even keep those websites going. So if you want to support even my mystical spiral, themysticalspiral.com, that website has been up and running since 2015, 10 years. So that's 10 years of free information that's been up on that website. I also have the store, the mysticalspiralstore.com, and you guys can check that out. Let me show you guys while we wait for some people to join here. Let me show you guys something cool. So this is my website. Shout out to Magic Micah. I don't know. She's not up right now. I think she's still sleeping with my daughter. They had a long day yesterday. Shout out to my beautiful girls, Tana Castaldo, and my wife, Magic Micah. Magic Micah's you guys see her as the moderator in my chat room sometime. I've known her since actually sixth grade. Sixth grade, we've known each other. Long time. And we will be 47 years old this year. What? 47 years old. And her birthday is just in a couple of days, everybody. So you could support us by also and my wife in the super chat for her birthday, giving her a gift and a super sticker. Also, here is my incredible. Not only do we have some badass, cool looking items, right? That just light up your home, your aura if you wear them, but they're also well thought out and hands-on energy work experience over the last 30 plus years. I've been doing energy work since I'm 15, 16 years old. So this has been a long process of developing the most simple but intricate, unique, most powerful ways you can enhance the electromagnetic energy of quartz crystal and wrapping copper coils around them as well. We also have the most incredible specimens and um, clusters and palm stones and all sorts of items that you could find on here. So we have right now a huge discount on pendants and all sorts of items. Also, I do a weekly video right here on YouTube where I do huge discounts, and those discounts are only available during those live videos. Or if you are paid membership here on YouTube, there's a way to have a paid member on YouTube. So those you'll have access to all the sales if you have a membership on my YouTube. All the sales in the live in the live streams that I do. And you'll only have access to those replays of the lives if you're a member here on YouTube. Glad you're here, Randall Hill. Randall. So check this. Just put out yesterday. I'm putting up new items every day, everybody. There's so many new items that I have to put up. I'm doing a limited edition series of pendants and skulls, 2025 First Wave Child of the Waters series. And here's one we just put up today: Pure Solidified Spiritual Light of the Smoky Herkimer Diamond Quartz. And you guys can see this is beautiful. If you hold it up in the light, it's pretty much see-through too. Really high quality smoky quartz. I mean, smoky Herkimer diamond here. You guys can see. Really cool. With the copper coil wrapped around it. And look at the sale. Only $39.55. What incredible, guys. We have put some of the most incredible sales up for you guys here, especially some of the prices can't be negotiated, but in the lives we were doing a little bit sale. Like this is a gemstone of Himalayan smoky quartz skull, master carved, and you guys won't believe the quality of this. Some of the highest quality skulls and powerful skulls that you can get on the planet. Go look at the live from today because the videos aren't really doing it justice. But almost every inch of this is filled with rainbow, and it's a gem quality, high altitude Himalayan rainbow quartz, first wave, limited edition, imprinted at the North Salem, New York, balanced rock, and with my master skull. So this is a once in a lifetime skull right here, and it's got rainbow all over. I mean, every angle you'll see different rainbow. Even look at the teeth now. Look at that. Incredible. So, guys, and I highly recommend anybody that wants either protection from EMF, you want to balance your emotions, you want mental clarity, you want to fight depression. All of these items are right there to help you. It just boosts your energy and your emotions, right? Just having these around your neck will bring you a lighter day. People will even, they're conversation starters too. Like people will be like, wow, that's real. That you can see the energy about these pieces. And of course, quartz is a piezoelectric material, and tourmaline and all these items are, most of these items are piezoelectric, right? So when they're squeezed or compressed, like when you wrap a copper coil around them, it generates the electrical current of the material, which then you can put thoughts into, amplify your thoughts, healing thoughts, and powerful pieces, right? So, you guys, here's one of the 2025 Child of the Water pieces. This is Himalayan and hydro quartz, just like the one I'm wearing here. All right, these are my first wave limited edition. There's only going to be 9 of these made for 2025. The first 2 out of the 3 have already been claimed, the gold rutile ones. This is the first one of the anhydro quartz, Child of the Waters. These are imprinted with 432 hertz quartz as well. And let me show you guys a little demonstration, if you can see where the water bubbles are on these things and how incredible it is. Let me see if I can get a clear view for you guys here. All right. So you see the end of it right here, how there's like a pyramid inside this of a brownish color. Well, that's actually millions of year old of oil that's included in there. Inside the middle of that pyramid, you see like it's a sideways pyramid. You'll see a round bubble, right? See that big round water bubble in there? Right now, it's almost to the right of center or upper right corner. It's moving around a little bit already, but watch now. See that water bubble up here? Up in the top right here? Now watch when I spin this, you'll see that water bubble. Now you can really see the water bubble right there. It's pretty big, actually. You'll see it move around when I move the piece. Oh, it's hard to glare. Hold on, let me take this. See it bouncing around. See, now it's at on the one side over here. Look, now it just went across. See that? Look, water bubbles moving. Look at that. See? That's a good angle you guys can see. Look at the water bubble. Boom, it just moved across. Now watch right here. See the water bubble? And then I'll move it again. See, it goes across. Boom. Look at that. See how it's moving across? Now you guys can see pretty good. Beautiful, right? These are the child of the water. Very, very rare pieces. And I wrapped them so there's the coil just around the top. Beautiful pieces here. Very rare, limited edition. And you guys got to get them to really see the amazing pieces. So not only am I developing these new devices for you and energy products, but also, guys, I'm not saying this lightly. I've been working on translating ancient writings and tablets for seriously decades, right? Serious. The last 15 years have been really serious, right? But ever since high school, I've been pretty much studying ancient writings. And if you guys have been following my work and know who I am, out of the my 46, 47 years of being on the planet, I have gone through a lot of different stages of work and research. And it's not just academic for me. I have a born intuitive sense. Some say it's because I was born inside the call. I think that does have a lot to do with it because many other people I've talked to born that way do experience a hypersensitivity to various things. And when I have a real strong interest in something, I I I get in a deep connection and insight and imprint to what I'm doing that I didn't know that most people don't experience it the same way. Everybody has a different way of being creative or um, just you know just the way just the different patterns that their mental makeup works and everything. Right. So I think over the years, because not only I had a unique birth, but I went through it like a head trauma before. I went through a near death experience. I think there was other certain things that also activated certain neurons and that were previously inactivated, and my body sort of had to learn how to adjust to certain hypersensitivities that were both negative and positive, right? Because I have like a real hypersensitivity to certain fabrics, to certain sounds, certain things that's really not, it's not positive for me. But in some aspects, there's the hypersensitivity. I have learned to use it to help people. Certain things that I've been able to sense about people's bio energy field and certain things about their psyche that's going on and different things about even their possible future timeline that I've been able to sense, and there's just certain things that I've learned to be able to translate somewhat accurate over the years of what I'm experiencing and seeing right internally. And we're all connected to what I consider streams of information that's coming from all the stars and suns, which are ultimately in science called rivers of plasma, right? They're coming from all suns and stars. And these rivers form one big celestial ocean. And what I've come to find out in my work and my experiences that this celestial ocean is talked about, that we're mistranslating as some mythical thing, but it is the big ocean of plasma that it's filled with all the information of the universe that has to do with creation, destruction, evolution, sustenance, everything that has to do. It is the missing link of sentient life that we're looking for, and it's right there, right? It's what interconnects everything. It's the Akashic records. And I've come to find out in my work through my own way, putting my piece of the puzzle to what other people have also come starting to discover in their own various ways, right? But what I'm been really diving into is translating a lot of the ancient past writings that's helping reveal what's happening right now in our present and what's going to transpire in our future, right? I feel like I am an ancestral scribe that has been put here. I've returned. I've chose to return, right? Once again to help awaken and find the truth behind some of the answers that we've been looking for. And I truly feel that a lot of my work has been underestimated, maybe because of my appearance, maybe because I look maybe a little younger than I am, but I'm damn near 50 years old, right? But I definitely feel my age sometimes, right? But I put my body through a lot of hell. I did a lot of combat sports in my life: wrestling, kickboxing, Muay Thai. I played soccer for many years, and uh, I definitely put myself through a lot of battle, both physically and spiritually. And I went through group homes, juvenile detention centers when I was younger, all sorts of things that I had to come out of to find my way, right? And reading from a young age was a way, and music was a way for me to not escape but explore, right? And I started creating. I draw, I do music. There's so many aspects of creation that we're channeling the light, right? When we have thoughts and interests that just come up, this just doesn't come up out of nowhere. I mean, this is, you could call it, like, people, the word psychic becomes taboo, right? But it is telepathic, it is psychic, it is coming from a connection that we have to the divine and to the cosmos, to God. We're breathing in consciousness, we're absorbing consciousness, we're absorbing the light, we're absorbing these streams of information that's connected to the frequency and the current of our spines, right? The spinal current of humanity is connected to the celestial ocean of light of all suns and stars. And this is talked about all throughout ancient writings. And we're going to start going deep into the translations in a lot of my podcasts and try to break it down in a way where people can understand it, because I've spent many, many years not just going through the mythology and the ancient writings, but also going through science. So we can also translate it and find scientific evidence to support some of the ancient writings and some of the ancient tablets and things like that, because not only is it showing advanced knowledge of universe and nature, but it's showing the spiritual significance as well, because nowadays, like I've mentioned before, science and spirituality is completely kept separate. And in the past, spiritual initiates and adepts, in which this most of these ancient writings was written by and intended for, you had to be an adept in all of the sacred sciences, which wasn't just astronomy or something like that. You were an astronomer, and you were a medical doctor. You were a shaman, and you were a priest. You were a priest, and you were a warrior. You were a psychic, and you were a skeptic, right? You were all of every end of the spectrum, right? Right? You had to be immersed in all the possibilities of nature and the universe, and you had to be one with yourself and where you fit in nature, right? That's what true spirituality is being able to breathe, right? Breathe and be one with yourself and nature and where you fit in nature, and be comfortable with yourself down to the very molecule of your being and who you are internally, right? And it's also about um, uh, on a deeper level with what I was talking about with I lost my place for a second, but I wanted to go back to what I was talking about with the I don't know. I forget where I was going with the yeah, no, I started reading the comments too. Wait, so oh, your mom was born in, yeah, it's spelled Caul. Caul, the call. And he put in the call. But she was she was yeah, well, I was born with it inside wrapped around me and with the umbilical cord wrapped around my neck. All right. Um and I think everybody is psychic. Um everybody has different levels of experiencing things. But uh people don't realize, and I think they don't listen to that side of that internal dialogue, and they don't go with a lot of the spiritual signs, just the signs, if you don't want to use the word spiritual, just the signs and the different things that are around us at all different times that we're in communion with, right? Now simultaneously each person is experiencing a different timeline than we are, right? But it's all happening simultaneously. So there can be a moment in time where an event happens or something transpires where it means one thing for one person and something for someone else, right? And you'll have two different meanings to it, and but you're both experiencing it, right? And there's all sorts of just levels to different things that we go through day by day, and people don't realize that everything that what we're experiencing is like opportunities, right? Possible timelines, and most of the little doorways that open for us, whether it's opportunities or what have you, we're sort of numb to it. Most people don't recognize it. Most people don't sense it, whether it's good or bad, that's around us. And unfortunately, most of the stuff around us today is of a negative influence that's trying to pull us down those avenues, right? And it's a swamp that's around us, that's blocking us from those streams of light that I was mentioning earlier, this celestial divine ocean of plasma, which ultimately our star, our sun, is also, in my opinion, receiving incoming streams of plasma. Now, I don't think mainstream astronomy would recognize that or admit that or say that, but I do think that our sun, the solar wind, at least, is a world interstellar network. And I think they'll admit that solar wind travels all around and is in communion with other solar winds. They merge into each other. So, in my opinion, our sun is also receiving incoming plasmas, which also generate sunspots and storms and all sorts of things on the face of the sun, which is a very misunderstood region. And the ancient adepts and spiritual initiates were advanced in the solar sciences, and spirituality and sciences were fused together. They were one. You can't have one without the other. And in science today, we're missing the spiritual significance of the stars, the light, and all of the sentient plasma that we have out there. This is the missing link. This is the angelic ocean, right? This is where this is another form of life, of matter, right? Yeah, it is a cosmic web, and we're going to be going deep into some of the most groundbreaking translations, in my opinion, that you're going to hear on these ancient writings. Some of the things that scholars thought they knew what they were talking about in the later 1800s by translating it, they gave us a good basis. But now we can really go deeper into what they were translating, because they really did give us good keys and interpreting the definition of some of the phrases and words within these writings. But academically, you don't know as what the adept and spiritual initiate is encoding and it has veiled beneath the metaphor and the poetic description that you're reading, right? So one of the most common stories that we see repeated as well in many different cultures and religions and ancient writings, you have the story of a solar hero, right? A solar hero, a solar king, a solar god, and a dragon, right? Where it's either slaying the dragon or piercing the dragon. And this dragon is a very mysterious being, cosmic being, right? That's described sometimes as being one who steals the cattle from Indra or something like this, or um, all sorts of different ways and metaphors. Now, let me first give you some interesting definitions of some of the things that are attributed to solar mythology. When you hear the stories of divinities or deities being described as cows or cattle, right? This has to do with the sun and the rays of light coming from the sun, right? The cattle would be the many rays of light coming from the sun. The sun or cow would be the feminine aspects of the sun. It's nourishing, milking life energy that it gives, right? And a lot of times they will show it as a spotted cow, because out from the spots on the sun, on the divine cow, is where the light comes from, right? So a lot of times it will be the divine spotted cow, and which this is equal to a sun, right? Same thing when you have horses. A lot of times it's a solar horse, and this has to do with the stampeding force of the sun. A lot of times you'll have a lot of different references to solar bulls, right? This has to do with the male aspect and the roaring force of the sun. Sometimes it will be a lion description as well, right? The solar lion, because he's that golden lion that roars, right? And then the hair of the mane of the lion is very similar to the way you see the rays, the plasma coming from the sun. It looks like a mane, and with the solar wind, it looks like the hair coming from, the around the lion's face, right? This is all very solar interesting descriptions, because that means they were seeing the ancient seers. If they didn't have telescopes like we have today, which I think they might have had something similar back then, right? But because all that stuff would be just dust by now. The only thing you would have left over is stone and bone, and things like that, right? If not even bone, maybe some of the bone would be just right. But um, but some of the ancient ones, they must have seen the sun and the streams of plasma, stuff that we can only detect with advanced radio telescopes and different telescopes that we use and stuff like that, advanced detection instruments, right? Um, uh, that means they were having some sort of inner sight, right? Very incredible inner sight where they can see down to the little molecule, or they can see thousands of miles. The true seers, when they have that clarity, right? When they're in a shamanic state, they can see through thousands of miles. They can see down to the very molecule. They can see and analyze the sun, right? At it's just incredible. So that you got to remind yourselves that. And yeah, shout out to everybody in in the chat room here. Who we got? We got Randall Hill just talking in the chat room. Randall, thank you, man. But they have to use like these plasma detectors in space now, and to detect like the different energies of the particles. They measure like the densities and the temperatures and all the velocity, which is just like a watery soup of plasma, these ions, these charged particles, right? And electrons and ions, right? They're just an ocean of information, and within our magnetosphere and within magnetospheres is one of the most dynamic and important regions, right? And this is what that's talked about in all the Vedas and all the ancient writings. And we're going to go into this. Shout out to Christy White Widow Winter. Hello, how you doing as well? Hi, hi. So don't forget, everybody, you can support me right here in the super chat or at PayPal as well. One of the most dynamic regions is the magnetosphere and the different regions in the magnetospheres. And in my opinion, the magnetosphere is the Garuda, right? It is the shield around Earth, right? But it also is a region that swallows the rays of light from the sun as well, and then injects some of what it swallows or releases some of what it swallows into various regions around Earth, right? And this I have found, not only was I shown this telepathically, when I start reading some of these ancient writings, like I said, I experience things on a pretty deep level. So when I really get into some of the ancient writings, I start being shown things. And then that leads me down avenues of research, both scientific research and academic research, where I am led to supporting evidence of things that I've been shown. So that is my unique way of being able to translate this. That is my own. And I feel that I once was an adept and spiritual initiate of the ancient past as an ancestral scribe. And this is my way of returning and helping to unlock some of the key elements of the past that can tell us what's going on right now in the present and in the future, right? So in the Vedas and in some of the ancient writings, you'll see Indra and vritra, right? It's Vritra, Vitra, right? This is very similar to Tiamat and Marduk, which we're going to get into, right? Well, the name Vitra also can be used sometimes as Ahi, right? Don't forget to like and subscribe, everybody, as well. And you guys, this is some groundbreaking, interesting stuff here. And I'm really going to try to make it so everybody that doesn't have either a science a plasma physics background or mythology background can try to grasp it, which is not easy, right? So the name Ahi also appears as Vitra, Ahi. And you can also look at Vitra as being an equivalent to Tiamat, right? So, and various other Bell and the Dragon story and various other ones that we'll get into. But Vitra or Ahi is, I'm going to show you how this is actually discussing the Magnetotail, a region in the magnetosphere that swallows some of the electrons and rays of light, aka rays of light, coming from the sun, the solar wind, right? And then it swallows the solar wind, and the sun, it's released, it's injected out of there and goes into various regions. Now, Ahi and Vitra, also another name for them is the enveloper, right? Same thing as what the magnetosphere does to Earth. It envelopes Earth. Also, Ahi or Vitra is described as a giant serpent that's coiled around Earth and then lays down when the sun sets, right? This is what happens with the Magnetotail. The Magnetotail stretches out on the night side, right, and forms these big regions, which I'll pull up in a picture in a minute. And in this region is where the plasma sheet is, right? And we're going to get into the scientific definition with NASA, and then I'll show you also exactly right here in ways that they're describing it in the writings. Now, Vitra is the one that hides away the light, right? He hides away the glistening cows of the sun. This is exactly what's described in the Vedic writing, Indra, right? And with Vitra, right? And Vitra is this one that's hiding away the light. He's hiding away the glistening cows of the sun, the glistening information, the glistening, glowing radiance rays of light from the sun, right? And it's just incredible, right? And then at times it's certain whole different clans of beings that are attributed to solar storms and intelligences that are in these waves of information coming from the sun. Like you have the Ashvins, the Maruts, the Aditas. All of these are solar-born divine intelligences that travel in the solar waves of light, right? And here at the Space Water Podcast is where we unveil the past to reveal the present and the future, and we dive into the sound of the light, which ultimately is the sentient plasma that we are all in communion with, right? And it's the same thing when at times Hermes, in many of the stories, he has to toil all night in the kindled forests, right? And then he you know he returns home. He lays himself down like a child in the cradle, and just as the swift breeze of the morning dawn of the sun, uh which they talk about having raged through the night as well. That's like, so like he's just laying down, right? It's all about the sun setting, the information coming in at night, and then the light being in, all the auroras, and it's all about the communion of dawn and sunset and sunrise, and all of the information that's coming from directly in the solar wind and literally tunnels of plasma from the sun to earth. All right. Just like some of the stories where Vitra is killed by Indra. There's some where um uh in the like in Vedic they also have Yama, which has very similar stories. Heracles in Greek, and also beings like Cerberus, these three-headed dogs that guards the portals to hell. These now have to be re-examined because these three-headed dogs are just different streams, different regions within the magnetosphere that guards Earth and around Earth, right? All of this, Cerberus just doesn't have three heads. He has hundreds of heads in some stories, right? And it all has to do with night and being the dog of the night, watching over the path to the lower worlds, right? Because when you cross over to the other worlds, you got to cross into this region, right? Right. When you become in just spiritual or soul form, right? When you lose this physical shell, right? You have like a magnetic duplicate of who you are. You're traveling through certain waves of light, right? You got to travel through these regions, right? And there's specific instructions the ancient adepts had. Like they had to go towards the North Polar region, right? Where the main opening was to the heavenly waters, right? And some of the most terrible powers of the light in so-called terrible powers of the light came in many names like Typhon, right? Also, Vritra. And how did they describe Vritra? He's vomiting the flames up, right? He's a dragon, right? A dragon laying down, right, on the night side, who's vomiting the flames and smoke up. But ultimately, it's what he's receiving from the sun that he's vomiting up, right? And it's the all these lightning flashes and pent up rain that they're releasing in the mythology all have to do with what they're taking in from the sun and then injecting into regions around Earth in the magnetosphere. And they describe it in many different ways. And the main features of Vitra and uh and even like in different tales in Greek, like Echinida and Gurion, things like that, uh, uh, Heracles and these stories. There's very similar things going on. When Heracles is has oxen before him, right? And on all these stories where he has to overcome certain things. I mean, you got to re-examine all of these stories because Hercules in those stories is on a cosmic voyage through the stars. It has nothing to do with Earth, and we're giving it earthly translations. Even like when he does the 12 labors of Heracles, right? He's traveling through the stars, through the cosmos, right? He's traveling through the plasma waters, and it's all got to be translated in a different way. So Vitra is stealing the cattle of Indra, and it's the same thing as saying he's stealing the light of the sun or imprisoning the cattle, right? And then releasing it. It's really incredible. It's incredible description of these solar divine deities and their information. Now, scientifically, the way they describe the 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 magnetosphere and the magnetotail. Let me see if I could pull you guys up a picture real quick. Yeah, you guys don't even know what I went through to go live this morning. I was gonna go live at like 3:30 originally, but I had to like delete everything off my computer and delete like Microsoft Edge, and I got rid of everything, and I just left like Zoom, YouTube, and then like one like special hidden browser like Brave, and like I'm think I'm just gonna use Brave or something like that. So everything is just I got rid of everything because too much stuff gets on your computer. It's not good. So let me go to this. Randall Hill. At least we got some people in the chat room. Hope you guys are liking the information here. It really is groundbreaking translation. So you guys can see this is the magnetosphere. Let me pull it up for you guys. This is the region. See, Earth is right here. Now, let me try to first explain this in a simple way before I show you how science translates a lot of this. So you see a picture down here is the Van Allen belts that go around, right? Which was shown to John Newbrow, who channeled or through automatic writing the OASP book that people need to check out. That's really incredible. In 1881, through pillars of light that came into his room. Now earlier in people always say that he changed his story. He had earlier, a couple of years before, had an experience where the pillars of light or a light came down and was taking over, like he was writing. It was helping him write. But then in 1881, this light came to him and told him to get a typewriter. This guy was a dentist living in New York City at the time in 1880 or 1881. John Newbrow. Many people don't know about this. And he channeled the book of, or through automatic writing, he did this huge book called OASP that I have. I'll pull it out in a minute. It's a huge book, well over 1,000 pages. And in it, in the 1880s, he draws and shows and describes the Van Allen belts before we knew about them, before they had been confirmed in any way, right? These arcs of Boan, as he describes them right here. And there's a lot of channeling or automatic writing in various ways that came in the early 1900s and late 1800s that showed the electric magnetic energies of the universe without us before we knew about a lot of them. And yeah, Randall Hill. So check this out. So this is how it comes, the OASP book. I've had this for a while now. It's not like once you get into it, it's, you know, you gotta respect it because it's not a light thing to get into. It's not something you could just get into for a couple of hours, you know. So this is the OASP. Oh, hold on, let me plug in my laptop. The battery's running out. All right, so this is the OASP book. Now, for context, let me get a little sidetracked for a second. Well, it's in the same context. Um, so let me give you some context here. This is John Newbrow right here. This is the guy who, I guess you could say, channeled this book through automatic writing in the 1880s. Now, this book is giant, OASP, right? I've talked about it a little bit before. He was in communication with an angelic intelligence. There's no doubt, right? Even gave him some real science that we didn't know about until very later on. Now, it also has familiar language of other people throughout time. Like it has a familiar hint to the Urantia papers, right? Even the divine revelations of Mr. Jackson. Very us, maybe even a little bit of Anna Kingsford, but this one is beyond all others, in my opinion. And when you open it and you start to see, and it's illustrated as well. Look what inside when you first see what the book is. Let me read to you what that says. It says, the words of Jehovah and his angel ambassadors a sacred history of the dominions of the higher and lower heavens on the earth for the past 24,000 years. Being from the submersion of the continent of Pan in the Pacific Ocean, commonly called the flood or deluge, to the Cosmic era, also a brief history of the preceding 55,000 years, together with a synopsis of the cosmogony of the universe, the creation of planets, the creation of man, the unseen worlds, the labor and glory of gods and goddesses in the Etherian heavens. So this is the Eloist edition, and it's illustrated, and I mean it's very interestingly illustrated, and he shows the Van Allen belts, as you can see here in the top of the page, way before we knew about them. You can see Earth right here. Earth is right here. And he's showing those ring Van Allen belts going around. He called them the Arcs of Boan. Right? So that's right here. He was showing these. Look at this. Incredible. Incredible. Right? So this book, I mean, it's not perfect like they even say in here, right? But it has some interesting things, and some of the names that they use in it is very interesting. And I really like the illustrations done as well. And it shows the electromagnetic energies in the universe. Look at some of these pictures. Really cool. Really cool. I mean, you had a lot of interesting automatic writing and channeling going on. Even the pictures of people, like he has some like portraits of people in here, and the way he has them pictured. Oh, this is cool. I haven't got to this page of the book yet. These vortexes. Let me show you, like, oh, he has Moses right here. Yeah, well, oh, you guys don't see anything? You guys got to see. You guys got to see. It says I'm sharing it. And then look at, this is Iwata. Iwata. And then you can see there's like a little star on the top of their head right there. Iwata. Very, very Indian Vedic looking. But, you know, I've spent, like I said, decades researching channeled material, people that have been in communion with the light, supposedly. And of course, there's frauds, but there's similar lingo going on. And even in the Law of One book, I think at one point, Don Elkins asks the channel, what about the OASP book? Right. I think I don't know if I actually saved it for you guys here. I might have posted it on my Patreon, guys, already, but maybe not. I don't know if I saved it or not. Thought I might have posted it on my Patreon. No, but you know, you guys, I've compared the Urantia book and OASP, right? And in the last podcast, I did a little excerpt on Urantia book and how I feel like a majority of it could have been channeled by Edgar Casey without him knowing, through Dr. Sadler. And because I think he was going to see Dr. Sadler as a psychiatrist in Chicago. and Edgar Casey was making periodic visits to Chicago. But I did an interesting see where this fits in with me is before I knew that John Bunker wrote a book about his research into Edgar Casey and the Urantia papers. I found John Bunker's book because of my own my own vision, right? So I did a viewing on the Urantia papers when I first started getting into really reading it, and I was getting a vision of a man that I believed was Edgar Casey. You know, that's what I felt it looked like, and I even did like a little sketch of it, and I wrote the word Halal, like this angelic being. Now, I at no time knew that a very similar name had came up in some of Edgar Casey's readings, and the group that was doing, you know, Edgar Casey had specific rules. So the people that were asking the questions, the group that was there during the readings, you know, they weren't allowed to let certain beings come in and assist them, right? In certain ways, like the group had to make a decision. So I didn't know that at one time or several times during Edgar Casey's sessions, a being, an angelic being or so, because his had called themselves Haliel, and he had offered them assistance to clarify more things that they've been wondering about. And the group declined. Now, it was this angelic being that I feel Dr. William Sadler was in communication with while Edgar Casey was asleep in his office during those sessions. And definitely, I think there was definitely some sort of, I mean, Dr. Sadler never revealed who was the so-called sleeping subject that he used to channel the knowledge of the Urantia papers. Which did you want bigger? Which picture did you want bigger? I don't know what you were talking about. Um, but I think it's quite possible. So do I have the? I think I have it over here. Let me get it for you guys. So I was doing a sketch, not even looking at the page while I was doing the viewing. You could call it a sort of automatic writing. Let's see if I still. It's in this old. This was a while back. I thought it was in this old notebook here. Maybe not. Maybe it's from a. Oh yeah. And see, I wasn't even really looking at the page, but can't even see it because of the light if I hold it back. So it's a guy in like that hat that Edgar Casey would wear in certain pictures, and the word halal at the bottom that was coming to me. First, I said it like scribbled out, and I made it more clear. Now I did that many, you know, like freaking 10 years ago when I was first going over the Urantia papers. I've had the book since the 90s, but I really didn't start getting deeper into it till years later. I had read parts of it and gone through it. But um, I didn't know that Edgar Casey had that that same similar name come up during some of his readings. Yeah, I was in the corner because I was sharing screen. So, you know, when I'm sharing screen, I'm sharing a picture, so I'm going to be in the corner, right? You guys can see the picture I'm sharing, right? That's the reason. Yeah, well, Edgar Casey, he would get taken over during his readings. That's why I don't agree with that sort of channeling. If you have to go to sleep where you don't know what's transpiring and you're let something enter in and take over your body, then that's very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. Now, there's ways of being awake and coherent, right? But I mean, you look at Arrigo, who was a psychic surgeon. He was doing psychic surgeries on people and so-called channeling Dr. Fritz. right? Who was a German doctor who supposedly died in like 1917. And then Arrigo was there in the 1960s and early 70s in Brazil doing surgeries on people, hundreds of them a day sometimes, and they would last between 30 seconds and a minute, where he would literally reach in, grab the lump, at a tumorous lump out of people, and use a rusty Swiss Army knife without using any antibiotics or anything, and somehow nobody was getting infections and they were getting healed. And nobody thought this was real, that it was some kind of myth, but we had real doctors go there and verify this and even get surgery by this man. So, and then he had this mysterious car accident in the 1970s in Brazil where he died. He was found dead with the door open. He was found unalived in a car accident with the door open. He was laying, out laying with the door open. So I think that it was staged and he might have been taken out. But Z Arrigo was his name. There's an interesting book that I have. It's not down here in my office, but it's upstairs on those bookshelves. Called Z Arrigo, the surgeon with the rusty knife. Really cool book that you can find out there. There's like a market paperback from the 70s or 80s that you can get. It's a really good book. Really cool. Also, he's talked about in by one of the Dr. Polharich, who actually got surgery from him. In some of Dr. Polharich's books. He's mentioned in a lot of people's books from the 70s and 80s and 60s and stuff. Even Peter Herkos was a well-known Dutch psychic, and he talks about him in his book as well. There's a lot of people that mention Ziad Rigo in some of their books. But yeah, I mean, guys, when it comes to the Magnetotail and the Magnetosphere, all right, let me show you guys what we're talking about here. All right, so this is the Magnetosphere with the regions. Now you see Earth in the middle, and this sideways structure right here. This is all the Magnetosphere, and you can see sideways it almost looks like the bulb of a tree with all its branches swaying in the wind, in the solar wind, right? There's various ways you can describe this, and I feel this is very related to a lot of what we're talking about when it comes to the Garden of Eden, the Tree of Life, a lot of things that are right outside of Earth, and it has to do with our being around Earth and things like that, right? Because this is where all the information is entering into before it gets to Earth, right? It's a very important region. So now this region of the magnetosphere, to describe it in the most basic ways, is that it's formed because of the liquid core of our planet, right? That rotating liquid core that forms the magnetosphere. Now, what makes the shape of the magnetosphere, what forms the shape of all of this, is actually the sun, right? The sun and its ramming force of its solar wind coming from the sun is what forms the shape of the magnetosphere. So it's the force of the solar wind that is forming this structure. Remember that. Very interesting, right? Now that solar wind also, the electrons and everything coming from that, plasma and electrons, right? A lot of it is being shielded, like the solar radiation is being shielded by this magnetosphere that the sun also forms, right? The sun's solar wind is forming the shape of it, but it's also the thing that it's forming the shape of is also shielding itself from the sun, right? This is why they say in Hindu and the Vedas that the Naga and the Garuda, they're enemies that come from the same source, and that Garuda shields Earth from the Naga, but also swallows and eats the Naga at times. This is because of the magnetosphere. The Garudas are a race of beings throughout the cosmos, a race of magnetospheres that guard and protect planetary systems. The Naga are solar emissions that travel through the celestial waters, right? They travel like electrical, like snakes, right? And Garuda's wings are shielded around Earth and constantly fighting off the snakes of the Naga, even grabbing and eating them, right? So the Magnetotail right here, right? And the Magnetopaws right here, this actually swallows some of the particles that you see here coming from the solar wind, from the sun. And these particles that you see right here, they go into the Magnetotail region, which is all this region around here, all this Magnetotail, all here, all this light purple region here with the yellow lines going through it. This is all the Magnetotail. So those particles, they get swallowed into there, and then the Magnetotail injects those particles into specific regions, right? And then also they become the aurora rings around the poles, right? So that's why when they say Indra, he slays Vritra. Vritra is the Magnetotail dragon that lays down, this big dragon that lays down on the night side. See, this is the night side. You got the sun here, solar winds coming from here. So this is the day side. This is the night side. The night side, the Magnetotail stretches out like a dragon laying down, swallowing the fire from the sun. And then it injects the fire as auroras and shimmering light in all of these regions. Now, the Magnetotail, Indra is the solar deity who slays Vritra, the Magnetotail, and releases the seven rivers. Now, these seven rivers that he releases is from the plasma sheet, the shimmering waters of plasma, and he releases these seven regions, and it's in several different regions, but there's like probably seven of them all together because there's several of certain regions, right? And this is very interesting, and in my opinion, almost spot on, if not spot on, right on the right track. And this is groundbreaking compared to whatever other people talk about. Now, these regions, these seven rivers of Indra that get released, they're where the Earth's magnetotail injects plasma into these several regions within the magnetosphere. And the main regions where they inject them are the magnetotail, like include the plasma sheet, right? The plasma sheet, the radiation belts, the Van Allen belts, the ionosphere, and polar regions. So these make up those seven rivers of Indra. I love you too. I love you too. Right? So Phyllis Schlaumer. Yeah. Phyllis Schlaumer. Yeah. I'll get to your comments in a minute. Yeah, I have the books of Phyllis Schlaumer and stuff and some of her channelings. One of them is here. This one was a hard one to get originally from Corgi Press. It was banned in the United States at first. Now you can get a reprints of different, less expensive versions. But I remember spending $100 originally when it came out, and it was not as good as I anticipated, but it's okay. The Council of Nines, a briefing from deep space. Phyllis Schlaumer's in this by Stuart Holroyd. He's a great author as well, Stuart Holroyd. Right. So the Magnetotail, it injects or releases these rivers of plasma, that it takes in from the sun, right? And the Magnetotail plasma sheet is the major source of plasma, the fire that it releases, and it injects It's a major source of plasma within the magnetosphere, and it injects plasma into the inner magnetosphere and even into the radiation belts, right? The Van Allen belts. Now, the radiation belts, they have the electrons and ions from the plasma sheet, and they can be injected into these radiation belts, and they contribute to their population and the energetic particle composition of things, right? And the ionosphere, this is another region that it gets injected from the magnetotail, and the plasma from the magnetotail can be transported into the ionosphere, and it influences the density and the dynamics, and particularly even during the geomagnetic storms and the substorms, right? Very incredible. And even the polar regions, this is where we get the auroras from, right? This is where you get the injection of magnetotail plasma, and this is releasing the rivers of Indra, right? Where Vritra releases the magnetotail plasma, or Tiamat, you could say, releases the magnetotail plasma, causing aurora and the rings of Aurora, which is rings of angels, rings of shimmering angels, rings of light. You always see angels, hierarchy of angels depicted around Earth, hovering over Earth in rings, right? This is auroras. They form rings around the polar regions, right? And they're shimmering waves of light, information of God, right? The messengers of God, messengers of the sun, information from the sun. It's all incredibly right. All right. And I'm not trying to sound conceited, but I don't get enough credit out there when it comes to these translations. And I mentioned them to astronomers, and they talk about it like it's matter of fact. Oh yeah, we always knew the Vedas had some ancient, truth and of the cosmos. Yeah, but no one said the specific stuff. No one said the Ankh is the coronal mass ejection, or the Pasha. I have been the one to rediscover it in these times, right? And these injections, they're driving those auroras, right? And they're described right in. Let's talk about Tiamat for a minute, and Marduk. Marduk being the solar sun hero, right? Now, of course, you have the contest between the solar hero and Earth, right? So you're going to have the dragon around Earth being the magnetosphere and the magnetotail in its regions, right? It's in constant battle with the sun, the solar hero. The solar hero wants to penetrate Earth, but the dragon is literally around Earth defending it in a way, right? But it's also swallowing the fire, stealing the cattle, right? And it also is responsible for releasing that fire and that information into the earth and around earth, right? So in the Babylonian and Chaldean version, you have Marduk and Tiamat. It's right from the Babylonian epic of creation. So what are we talking about when they say it's an epic of creation? We're talking about divine knowledge coming from the cosmos, and how earth and light and everything is created on this planet, comes in and out of this planet, right? Now, right in it, we're seeing from the beginning some of the things that we'll get into. This is taken right from excerpts right from it, right? The English translation. Now, it first goes into like, thou Marduk, most honored of the great gods, thy decree is unrivaled. The word is Anu, and this is coming from the heavens. They're talking about it's coming from the heavens, right? And talking about how thy command shall be unimpeachable, right? And no one among the gods shall transgress thy bounds, right? And it's talking about how Marduk, you're indeed our avenger, right? Like Horus is the avenger. These are solar heroes, right? And we have granted thee kingship over the universe entire. When in assembly thou sittest, the world shall be supreme. Your weapons shall not fail. They shall smash thy foes. O Lord, spare the life of him who trusts thee, but pour out the life of the God who seized evil. Having placed in their midst of cloth, they addressed themselves to Marduk, their firstborn. Right now, we're going to get a little bit more deeper into it. They're talking about just rituals going to him, right? And then they get into when the gods, his father, saw the fruit of his word, joyfully they did homage. Marduk is king. They conferred on him scepter, throne, and vestment. They give him matchless weapons that ward off foes. Go and cut off the life of Tiamat, right? And now listen to how this goes. They're telling him to go cut off the life of Tiamat, this dragon who's coiled around Earth. They say, go and cut off the life of Tiamat. May the winds bear her blood to places undisclosed. Now, these undisclosed places, in my opinion, are the unseen regions and plasma regions and things like that we're talking about right here. And it's literally telling you, may the winds, the solar winds, remember, Marduk is a solar hero. What's coming from the solar hero is solar attributes. And they're saying these are winds that's coming from Marduk. Right? So it's literally telling you the winds, may the winds bear her blood to places undisclosed. Tiamat is the one they want to bear her blood. And her blood is going to be placed in undisclosed places. Tiamat is the Magnetotail. May the winds, the solar wind, bear her blood. Remember, the solar wind goes into Magnetotail Tiamat. Now it's inside Tiamat, and then it gets vomited out. Her blood is vomited out to places undisclosed. These are the undisclosed places, the plasma sheet, the plasmosphere, the polar regions, right? It's the blood of Tiamat, aka the winds of the solar winds, right? Then it says, then Tiamat and Marduk, wisest of the gods, joined issue. They strove in single combat, locked in battle, right? The solar wind and Tiamat is merging together. They are fused, locked in battle. Locked in battle. Then it says, Marduk, the Lord, spread out his net to enfold her. You see, Marduk's net is the solar wind. The solar wind spreads out and forms and enfolds the magnetosphere. Then it says that the evil Marduk, the Lord, spread out his net to unfold her. The evil wind that followed behind, he let loose in her face. Do you see how credible that is? The evil wind, after he enfolds it, the evil wind that follows behind was let loose in her face. Marduk's face. That is Tiamat's face. It's an incredible description. Then it says, next line, when Tiamat opened her mouth to consume him, he drove in the evil wind that she closed not her lips. Do you hear that? When Tiamat opens her mouth to consume the fire from the sun, he drove in the evil solar wind that she could not close her lips. Then it says, as the fierce winds charged her belly, right? These are fierce solar charged ions right? They're charging her belly. This is a chaotic region in the Magnetotail when all of this charged particles come in there. And it's telling you, when the evil wind that followed behind her let loose in her face, when Tiamat Magnetotail and Magnetopaws opened her mouth to consume him, he drove in the evil solar wind that she closed not her lips. I'm going to read it with the correct translations. As the fierce solar winds charged her Magnetotail belly, her body was distended and her mouth was wide open. He released the arrow. It tore her belly. Right? And it's saying it cut her inside, splitting the heart and extinguished all of her life. He cast down her carcass to stand upon it. All on earth, right? After he had slain Tiamat, the leader, her band was shattered, her troop broken up. Right, but then this starts again at sunrise and dawn, like and over every night. This happens every day. Right, or they could be talking about some huge solar storm that transpired. Right, it's incredible. And of course, a lot of the translations was probably like, throughout it was made to look more human and more, suitable for kings and things like that. They put earthly attributes to a lot of mythology and earthly names, right? The golden light, tsunami coming to earth. Yeah, I've been talking about this. I mean, this is what we're talking about. The solar wind tsunamis of light. And I'll get into the 2025 a little bit before we close. But, this is, in my opinion, some of the most groundbreaking translations of this. And you see the same thing with Indra and vritra. Indra being that thunderbolt wielder of the sun. I mean, this is what solar storms are, and he killed the dragon who lay upon the mountain. I mean, literally in the Rig Veda, when you have Indra and Vritra or Ahi or Vritra being the enveloper, the magnetosphere, literally talked about as stealing the fiery light of the sun, right? So Indra kills the dragon and pierced an opening for the waters. Now, the dragon is the Magnetotail. He pierced it and opens the waters, and he split open the bellies of mountains, right? This is all mountainous regions in here as well, right? And it's then when they talk about mountains, they're talking about the dynamic landscape inside the magnetosphere and around Earth. No, Tiamat is it's not the asteroid belt at all. I know some people might say things like that. At one time, I thought Tiamat could be a comet. Tiamat, if you're not hearing what I'm saying, it's the Magnetotail. Maybe you're not. I've been saying it for like an hour. It's the Magnetotail. I mean, in no way are they talking about it being an asteroid belt, in my opinion. And I could go up against anybody who said that in books. Unfortunately, a lot of people, they say things in books and then they want to stand by it. I've been wrong before. If you would have talked to me 10 years ago, I would have told you Tiamat was a freaking comet. And I would have told you the Maruts are comets, but they're not comets. In no way are they describing that. They have to do with solar storms, and with the Maruts at least. And with Tiamat, it's the Magnetotail. It's the dragon around Earth that lays out on the night side, right? And it tells you right in the Rig Veda with Vritra and Indra, right? Indra kills the dragon who lay upon the mountain. Earth is the mountain, and the right here, right? And the dragon lays upon on the night side. The dragon stretches out. He's laying down The Magnetotail is laying down, right? And flashing the roaring thunderbolt, right? Indra has Svastar actually helping him too. And like lowing cows, the flowing waters rushing down, right? And then they describe all of this, right? In a 3-day Soma ceremony, it takes 3 days for those solar storms to get to Earth, usually something like that, right? And then they talk about this is all about a very interesting moment that has to do with the dawn, nighttime, and bringing forth the sun, right? And with the great weapon, the thunderbolt, Indra kills the shoulderless Vritra. That they describe it like this is the shoulderless dragon right here that they describe Vritra, who's his greatest enemy, right? And like a trunk of a tree whose branches have been lopped off, they described it by an axe. The dragon lies flat upon the ground, right? They're talking about the Magnetotail, and then Vritra, the Magnetotail, Indra releases the waters from it, right? These waters that get released from the Magnetotail, this you see these arrows going, those are the waters being released, right? So it's incredibly described in the most poetic and beautiful descriptions. And in Marduk, Tiamat, you even have it in Bel and the Dragon. So let me show you. You want a good translation of Bel and the Dragon, you can go to the Transactions of the Society of Biblical Archaeology. This is from this book is from 1877. 1877, Transactions of the Society of Biblical Archaeology. This is volume 5, and this is from June 1876, actually, this one. June 1876 translation. And this is between Bel and the Dragon. And how do they describe it? The flaming sword that turned every which way. And now, what do you have? A coronal mass ejection or solar flare that comes from the sun to Earth? It's a twisting, turning sword of the sun that turns every which way, right? It's literally like a noose or a sword coming from the sun that twists and turns every which way, that has 1,000 eyes everywhere. It can see everything, right? And they describe that beautifully. And it's one of the most incredible narratives of the Chaldean mythology is in the Society of Biblical Archaeology, between the fight between Bel and the Dragon and the flaming sword which turns every way, which they talk about in Genesis 3:24. Remember, that's right from the Bible, and it's also right in a Chaldean tablet. Let me see if my wife's up yet. She might be up. I think I did hear her. Babe? Babe? You want to get in the chat room? I need you. All right, I'm not gonna close. I was gonna start to wind down the podcast, but we'll keep it going because my wife's up, so she's gonna join the chat room as well. And don't forget, everybody, you could support me right here in the super chat if you guys love my groundbreaking research that we're sharing with you. I mean, dude, I don't watch it, but my wife happened to have on David Wilcock for a couple of minutes one day. This guy was getting thousands of dollars in the chat room. I don't know how. People were just sending him hundreds of dollars. I was like, it discouraged me for a minute. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? I actually am one of the real ones out there who has spent my life doing real translation and come and have my own unique thing. I'm not copying. I mean, all these other people are literally repeating other people's information, right? Well, this is one of the most unique channels on the planet. And I had somebody even comment in my, making a negative comment to me in one of my interviews with Gary Wayne, saying that Gary Wayne's just coming on my show because he comes on all shows. And it says, oh, you cut Gary off. Actually, I don't really cut Gary off. There's 1 or 2 times that I cut Gary off in the 10 years that I've been working with him. And it's only because he started rambling on an area that I don't really agree with. So I wanted to kind of change the topic. So I kind of butted in. And so Gary was like, "Oh, let me finish." But he wasn't mad at me. People, ask Gary yourself. Let me tell you something. I've been in correspondence and friends with Gary Wayne since 2015. I am one of the first podcasts he's ever been on. I am the most frequent podcast that he goes on. He's not coming on my podcast just to be nice. I have his home number. I've talked to him at his house, on his home phone. I talk to him during holidays, right? We've been in correspondence, and he respects my work just like I respect his. In fact, he goes to me for information just like I go to him for information. And he'll tell you he learns just as much from me as I learn from him. And I'm one of the most respected podcast person that he comes on. And he'll tell you that. Ask him yourself. I know he would tell you that because he's told me. Right. And he comes on my show. We do it twice a month usually for 10 years, if not at least once a month. Sometimes we've done 3 weeks, 4 weekends in a row before. So he's not coming on just to be nice. He's coming on because he enjoys my podcast, one of the most that he enjoys out of all of them. And he respects my knowledge and work. So that's why I have famous. I don't have many guests on for a reason, because there's certain levels out there, and a lot of the people out there, they're not at the level, and I don't agree with a lot of what they're saying. So I don't want to just come up there and be like fighting with them the whole time and butting in and telling them I don't agree. But I I'm not getting paid to do this podcast, right? I'm not making a lot of money. I don't make much money. I don't think I've ever made more than $800 for the year for YouTube. So this is not for the money, right? I'm doing this for a passion. So I only have on a few guests. There's a famous astronomer, Professor Chandra, that I have on. I have on Gary Wayne. I have on Glenn Kreisberg, who's a megalithic expert. And the astrologer I have on is Robert Phoenix. Only the people that you see in my colleagues section on my website. Also, another reason, guys, support me, because we got to pay for my websites coming up, and I pay for them all myself. I have no supporters like sponsors. I'm self-sponsored. I have no affiliates out there. So I don't believe in like having all these affiliates and different things going on in a way where you don't even believe in their product or anything like that. So I have my own product that we self-sponsor. So if you guys want to even $1.99, whatever helps, super sticker, PayPal donations, I highly recommend you guys becoming a partner. I'll set up a page. If you guys want to make donations, I'll set up a page on my website where you guys can put your names up as contributors, and we can start a whole research project as well. And if you like my work, you can go to patreon.com/the mystical spiral. And like you guys have seen before, I have some of the most groundbreaking pendants as well. And we have developed some of the most incredible products and websites for your mind, body, and soul that you could find out there. Very unique. And we'll take a little break for a second before we go further into it. And you guys can see, I highly recommend getting the Child of the Waters amulet. This is a limited edition. There's only going to be 9 like these made. There's a couple sold already. These are all limited edition. And I showed you earlier in the podcast how there's water bubbles inside of it, how they move around inside of it. Also, the skulls. We have a limited edition first wave of skulls coming out. We've already released a couple of them. They're gem quality skulls. The Anhydro one, Zordia the third. This one has already been claimed. It's already shipped out. This has hydro bubbles inside of it. Very, very rare. And it's high altitude gem quality Himalayan quartz. Very high quality. just as high quality as the Mitchell Hedges skull, even cooler because it's not as big, of course, but it's got in hydro bubbles inside. And I saw these go for as much as $600 or more for even that size. So very rare. You also have Himalayan smoky quartz gem skull. This one is just amazing, everybody. This is Himalayan rainbow quartz, right? I don't have Cash App, but you can pay with your credit card or PayPal, or I have Wix payments or PayPal. So there's several payments. You could pay with just your regular credit card or whatever. PayPal is just one option on there. But we got so many pendants and different types. Look at this one with the Rutil. And we got huge sales. You guys, you won't believe some of the discounts that I put up on the website yesterday. So look at some of these discounts on the pendants. Look at these ones, $23.99. And that's shipping included and necklace material and free gift included. Look at this, baby. This is half off. $48 for the rainbow moonstone gem. Look at this. Herkimer diamond, $27.74. Herkimer diamond with necklace material and free gift and shipping included. What? How can you guys not get these while it's up there? And I have a whole bunch going up on the website today. Every day I add more. Look at some of these, $25. This one is down from $144, $95.69. This one's down from $150. Look at that. And you're getting like over 40 inches of twisted copper in these ones. These are royal cubit, which is a little over 20 inches. This has got a double royal cubit in it. This is rose quartz with the double royal cubit twisted tensor coil around it. Incredible. You guys got to take these deals up while they're up there. They've been going quick for sale. So look at some of these sales on here. Look at this. This is natural citrine, $69.99 with the tensor coil wrapped around it. This is real natural honey citrine from Brazil, AAA grade. We got so many deals up here of pendants and all different items. So many deals. So many cool ones. I'm going to put up more sales today. I had gone through like 1 or 2 pages yesterday and put up the sales, but you guys can get all these different discounts on here. Incredible. Look at this palm stone, $38.99. So look at this for $39.55. You get the smoky Herkimer. And look at how transparent it is in the light. It's incredible. Dope. That's really dope. Really dope. And the Child of the Waters amulets. I have a few of them coming out. And they're all limited edition. We also have the limited edition skulls. The smoky, I have them out here on display so you guys can see. This is the smoky quartz. These are all gem quality Himalayan high altitude rainbow quartz. This is the smoky quartz one. And the rainbow in this is just incredible. Then we got the citrine and quartz ones. This one is the dragon, and the rainbow in this is just incredible as well. Look at that bad boy. And then we got some of the travelers modeled after Leandro de Souza of Brazil, but this is the mystical spiral store version of the travelers. This is natural citrine, everybody. Natural citrine is just incredible. Not heat treated, very rare. I am limited edition. Thank you, brother. The peaceful penguin. Thank you, my brothers and sisters, for the kind words. Don't forget, you can now support me in the super chat, everybody. There's super stickers, super chats. You can all support me there, right? So the transactions of biblical archaeology, they have another story that goes along with the turning plasma swords coming from the sun, and how they describe Bel and the dragon, right? And they scribed this battle with incredible animated description. I mean, the weapons which Bel wields, they talk about as a numerous and formidable, and Bel ultimately is a sun god. He's a solar deity, right? So what is a solar deity gonna wield? He wields a flaming sword, very similar to Michael, Archangel Michael, and the dragon stories, right? And this sword turns every which way. Now, what do you have with a coronal mass ejection, right? You have what do you have with a coronal mass ejection? You have a flaming sword that turns every which way. See this loop here? This loop right here, that this arc, that's the Ankh, first of all, right? That loop, that Ankh, but this turns every which way. Twisting magnetic field lines is what forms that arc, right? That's a flaming sword turning every which way. It's incredible, incredible, right? And in Biblical Archaeology Society, Volume 5, they have the Transactions of Biblical Archaeology. They have Volume 5. They have from June 1876. They have part 1 is right at the first top of the book is the flaming sword of the fight between Bel and the dragon, right? So now, like I said, this comes right out of Genesis, this quote. That flaming sword that turns every which way is right in Genesis 3:24, right? And let me look that up for you guys for a second. So what does Genesis 3:24 say? I don't know it word for word. I just know where it was, Bel and the dragon. So Genesis 3:24. I don't like looking things up on the internet. Like I said, it took me like an hour or more to go live because I had to I deleted everything on my laptop except for Zoom, Brave, and YouTube. I had to get because I did like a virus check because I have a paid virus, thing, a paid antivirus thing that I pay for every year. And it was saying I had like all these attachments, and I barely use this computer. I only use this computer for work. I don't use it for like looking up things really too much. And I've never gone on like illegal sites on this computer or anything like that. I don't do that kind of stuff. So, um, I don't know where all those attachments came through, but it said like some kind of something was on there. Genesis 3:23 or 3:20. Oh, I think it's Genesis 3:23. I was off one. But it says the Lord God made garments of skin for Adam and his wife and clothed them. And the Lord God said, the man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever. So the Lord God banished him from the Garden of Eden. Now remember, the Garden of Eden, is my opinion, is also this Magnetosphere region, right? Or Earth being the Garden of Eden, with the tree of life being around Earth. All of this is related, right? So the Lord God banished him from the Garden of Eden to work the ground from which he had been taken. So he got banished from the Garden of Eden and he got sent into Earth. After he drove the man out, he placed on the east side of the Garden of Eden the cherubim, right? Which, in my opinion, are the solar wind. They are the wings of God, the wings of the sun. And the cherubim and a flaming sword flashing back and forth to guard the way to the tree of life. The tree of life being around Earth. The flaming, flashing sword turning every which way, coming from the sun. The cherubim guiding the way, the cherubim being the solar wind, guides the way for the flaming sword to the tree of life. Now that's right in Genesis, the end of Genesis 3. So when you go into the Chaldean tablet, you got this celestial weapon, right, of the cherubim, this flaming sword, which turns every way to keep the way of the tree of life. The same celestial weapon of Bel and the dragon, right? So it is in that story, the Bel the dragon, in the hands of Bel, right? The sun god, right? And he's the hero, the solar hero. And he, according to plate 42 in the Chaldean tablet, created mankind. There's several lines at the beginning and end of each face of the tablet, which are broken off, which causes some obscurity. But the front of the tablet, plate 44, line 1 is broken. Line 2, the first half is illegible. And then the second half, it says, and with his right hand he armed. Now, the third line, his flaming sword he raised in his hand, for he brandished his lightnings before him. And then the next line, a curved scimitar he carried on his body. Now, what is a curved scimitar? This is the coronal loop description and metaphor. The curved weapon coming from the solar deity Bel, the curved scimitar. Isn't that incredible? The coronal loop, the arc, right? They're telling you it's the flaming sword, the curved scimitar, right? He brandished it with light. It's flashing lightnings. A curved scimitar he carries on his body, and he made a sword to destroy the dragon, which turned all ways, north, south, east, and west. No one could avoid its rapid blows, right? Near to his saber, he placed the bow of his father Anu. Now, Anu is the heavens. It's the bow of the heavens, which is a sun. A sun is shooting its arrows of light at the earth, right? It's arrows of rays, right? So Anu is the celestial heavens. It's putting a bow, placed a bow of his father Anu. A bow is one of the sons of Anu. One of the sons of Anu is our star in our solar system, throwing the arrows of solar light, of solar rays, right? And near to his saber, he placed the bow of his father Anu. He made a whirling thunderbolt, everybody, a whirling thunderbolt and a bolt with double flames, impossible to extinguish. Now, of course, this is a coronal mass ejection and solar flare, right here translated by Ra Castaldo for the very first time. The Chaldean tablet, or rediscovered for the very first time in our modern history, right here, tablet 44 of the Chaldean tablet of the creation of man, is talking about a quadruple bolt of crooked fire. Look at this, lines 10 and 11 of plate 44 of Bel and the Dragon. He made a whirling thunderbolt. Now remember, this person who made a whirling thunderbolt is Bel, the solar deity. He made a whirling thunderbolt and a bolt with double flames, right? Double flames. What does double flames mean? Forked lightning, right? Forked lightning. That's incredible, right? So you got double flames, forked solar storms, right? double flames, a whirling thunderbolt, and a bolt with double flames, which is impossible to extinguish. Right? Then a quadruple, and then he said, and a quadruple bolt and a septuple bolt. Right? These are swarms. Right? They come in coronal mass ejections and solar flares. They come in repetition. Right? They come in these friggin' storms. Right? And this talks about a huge storm coming from the sun, and a quadruple bolt, a septuple bolt, and a bolt of crooked fire. Everybody, line 11 ends on plate 44. A bolt of crooked fire. That is a coronal mass ejection loop. This is your bolt of crooked fire coming from the solar deity. It is also why a solar shepherd holds a crooked staff. Right? That's the real translation and the real origins of a crooked staff and the crooked fire. A crooked fire. Right? No one can defeat the quad bolt. Shit, I'm about to donate to myself for that. Then it says, right? He took the thunderbolts which he had made, and there were 7 of them. Right? Very similar to Indra releasing the 7 waters, right? To be shot at the dragon, he put them into his quiver behind him. Then the Lord of the Storm, right? The Lord of the Storm, the Lord of the solar storm. Oh, yes, it has a conscience. The Magnetosphere they are a race of cosmic beings. In Hinduism, they call them Garudas, right? These solar origin beings that protect planetary systems and even swallow the Naga solar emissions. This is all vernacular of the Ra Castaldo work, right? So you guys will start to catch on to some of the terms I use, right? So the sun sees all, nothing can escape the sun. It is the god of the solar system, the little god, right? You could call it like an angelic general of God, right? He's the Lord of the storm. Bel is the Lord of the storm, like Baal, right? These are solar gods and storm gods who raised his great sword, mounted his solar chariot, whose name was this destroyer of the impious, or however you say that, impious, that he took his place and lifted the 4 reins in his hands. I mean, they're talking about magnetic field lines, right? That'd be 2 in each hand, 4 reins, the magneto, similar to the way they describe Apollo. Apollo is a solar deity. He's the sun. They describe Apollo's messengers as being dolphins, and he holds these dolphins as on leash. These dolphins on leashes, right? These leashes that he has the dolphins around are magnetic field lines, right? The dolphins are messengers of Apollo, right? So the sun is Apollo. The information or the messages that come from the sun travel like dolphins diving through the celestial plasma waters, the same way the Naga snakes travel, right? So the Birkeland currents, they call them in plasma physics, right? So these dolphins travel on magnetic field lines, leashes of Apollo. So you see Apollo being the sun holding these leashes with the dolphins on them, and the dolphins are diving through they're the messengers of Apollo, right? That's all plasma physics right there. It's all plasma physics. It's incredible. We love you as well. We love you as well. That's why it's incredible when you see like dorks like Wilcock and all those people getting all these donations in the chat room. And look at me, 0. It's a little discouraging because this is groundbreaking information, and it's telling you that these ancient writings, mantras, hymns, they were developed to put us in communion and to absorb one with the light. You do these mantras at dawn, at sunrise, at sunset, right? All these different times of the day, at noon, right? To be in communion with the light. They're mantras to the sun. They're aligning you with the distance and energy and pulsations and sound of the light, right? Incredible, right? It's all about diving into the sound of the light to evolve with it, to be one with it, to be one with the cosmic consciousness. No, I don't want his karma at all, but it would be nice to have some similar support out there. You guys got people like just throwing money at him and things like that, man. I would like a little bit of that kind of support for my work. I definitely deserve it because there's people like him that plagiarize people like me constantly. Right. But there's no way I'm going to be silenced though. I'm still going to put my information out there. It's just, it's a little discouraging sometimes. I never was out there, in it for any of the money, but unfortunately it costs me money to keep my websites running. It costs money to, to feed the three of us and there's three of us that I take care of. It's not easy. So the mystical spiral store is where it's at. And look, guys, this fight between Bel and the dragon is just incredible. This shows you she watched his lightnings turning and twisting. She lifted her. All of this stuff talking about is just incredible. Incredible when you know what dots you're connecting. A lot of people do research and they're looking to connect the dots, but they don't really understand what dots they're looking for. Really incredible. Yeah, no, I just use him as an example because I happened to witness it one day, and it was baffling me that he was getting like thousands of dollars in the super chat. I'm like, how is this possible? He just made more than I've done in my whole history of YouTube in one live chat. It's a little discouraging. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the I do a lot of people that I've researched, I do feel, and that I've worked on, and even my own, I do feel there has been angelic ambassadors that have been in communication with many of us, and that we all have a guardian angel or daemon or whoever how you want to label it connected to us, right? And once people start to become open to some of the cosmic energies out there, the electromagnetic energies of these celestial objects can really mess with people's psyches as well if you're not grounded individuals. You've had people really get connected to comets, right? Where certain comets they felt like was going to you know usher in the end of humanity, or that the comet was able to, they were going to end up hitching a ride with the comet or something like that. you know um it's really incredible when you start to see that. One of them was um Robert Wilson. Remember Robert Anton Wilson? He was a mystic. I think he was like a supporter of Aleister Crowley's work, though. One of those guys that was really into I have his it was like a novel, but I never really read it. Illuminatus or whatever. I didn't know it was a novel until I got it. It's like 3 volumes, I think, altogether too. But in it, he talks about higher intelligences, and even in there's a book called Cosmic Trigger that he has, where he talks about his experiences, which I've read a little bit about, and he was friends with Timothy Leary and those people. He came up around those times. But in 1973, he talked about in the book Cosmic Trigger, he talked about how in July of 1973 he woke up with like an urgent message, right, from his dream world, right? And he wrote it down in his diary, and he wrote down that Sirius, the star Sirius, is very important. I guess he at the time he really didn't know what he was looking for or anything like that. But in his book, he talked about that he had found the different connections of a lot of people, like Crowley and other people found their connections to Sirius. And on that day that he had that message, the 23rd of July, also according to Egyptian writings and ancient Egypt, was, you know, that powerful time between the earth and Sirius being connected, right? Where there's this fusion or this spiritual occult link that they talk about happening between earth and Sirius at that time. So this guy was famous for talking about a comet and how a comet was going to come to Earth and do some sort of like you know I don't know, some sort of like higher intelligences from a galactic network they were talking about was going to return. And they said that they were going to send a comet. So this was the type of galactic network message that he was getting supposedly through Sirius, that he thought that they're sending a comet to our solar system, and it's going to be a sign that a time has come to look to the stars, or whatever he was saying. And then a few months later, Wilson talks about in his book that comet Kohoutek, as predicted in his transmissions, arrived in our solar system and then went towards the sun and either fizzled out or got swallowed by the sun or went into the sun or whatever. And this happened recently as well. It happens pretty often, actually, where comets will come into the inner solar system, and it'll go into and go towards the sun and then go into the sun. And this is very interesting and very incredible. And a lot of mystics, I think they start to maybe even mistranslate some of the things, or they can feel the energy of it and not fully see what was going on. But I mean, there's people that have really distorted it and killed themselves over it before as well. I mean, look at what happened with the other comet that time, where the whole cult killed themselves over the comet. I forget what they were called now. Heaven's Gate. Remember Heaven's Gate? They were too. They were thinking a comet was going to pick them up, and I think it was the Hale-Bopp comet at the time that was gonna pick them up and give them some sort of. But they did some sort of mass unaliving. Right? I can't really say certain words out of here, but yeah, crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. We did some incredible translations. Everybody go check out the mysticalspiral.com. I don't know how long my free information website, the mysticalspiral.com, you guys can check it out. Hold on, let me show you guys. Let me share a screen for you guys. So this is my free information website. It's been up for about 10 years, but it's getting really expensive to keep this up now. And like I said, I don't have any affiliates or anything like that helping me support it. But like at first, when I first started this website, it was like only $100 or plus a year. Now it's like close to 400. And I also have a store, my store website, which is on a separate Wix. So it's a whole separate channel. So this website is way more expensive than my other one. So it's like over $1,000 to keep my websites running. So I would appreciate the support. A lot of you guys have benefited over my information over all the years. It really would help. And it's energy exchange. I mean, how much energy do you want me to give in all these podcasts? You got to give a little bit back, right? I've been given so much over the years, either the walk around videos that I do, all the information that I do, and I do it, not just for myself. If I wanted to do it just for myself, I'd just be here talking to my wife and doing my research by myself. I'm doing it because this information needs to get out by unveiling some of the adepts writings of the past, we'll be able to unlock the knowledge of our present and our future and what's transpiring now, because surely it has happened before and it is once again happening now. We go through cycles, and right now we are under what's in known as in the yuga cycles as the great summer of purification, and we will be getting waves of light that has just started. The first wave of light is upon us. Between spring equinox and the summer solstice is our first wave. That's why I developed the limited edition first wave products on my website, imprinted with this first wave of light that we're receiving from the cosmos. And I'm right here standing on the front lines of the first wave, knowledgeable of it, receiving it and helping transmute it to humans, because we've been infected with amnesia, where we have a slime around us and most people can't sense it, let alone be aware of it in any way. So it's time to tune in to who we are and where we fit in the world before we lose humanity. Right now, we are under the Ma'im Chaim, the living waters, right? That they talk about in Hebrew and in the Bible. And these living waters are rushing over humanity, which could be a global DMT like event for us if we change the collective consciousness of humanity. And we've developed the product, and we got the limited edition first wave skulls, limited edition first wave amulets. So you guys can check them out right here at the mysticalspiralstore.com. Let me show you guys. So the description, I wrote right in the description on some of these. You guys got to read the descriptions on my products, some of them. So this is, look, number 2, 3 have already been claimed. This is just put up. This is number 1 of the Celestial Waters, Celestial White First Wave pendants, number 1 of 9. The Apam Napat amulet, aka the son or daughter of the waters amulet. Natural Himalayan in hydro quartz laser point, wrapped in silver wire wrap, spiral out coil, and imprinted with 432 hertz. I do this with a frequency generator that's connected to a copper tensor Faraday, and it goes inside the cage of copper that's being imprinted with the 432 hertz. Really incredible. And it's singing with energies, and the water and the crystals itself are said to be imprinted with the knowledge of the ancient Himalayan sages. That's why we use a lot of our quartz is high altitude Himalayan quartz, one of the most powerful quartzes in the world. Right. So this is where you go for the most highest quality, most ethically sourced, most unique products on the planet, the mysticalspiralstore.com. Guys, thank you for joining me. It's been a pleasure to have you here. Have a great day, and spiral.